Welcome to Why We're Fans. I'm Duran, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Gennaro.
In all of our episodes, we cover the past, present, and the future of all your favorite NFL football teams.
We love hearing your stories, talking the NFL draft, and reminiscing about the good old days.
If you like the same, be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. And leave a comment below if you want to answer any of our questions.
Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on our latest interviews. And like we always say, win or lose, we're all fans. Enjoy this episode.
And welcome back to the show. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a great day. It's your hosts, as always, Gennaro and Duran. Duran, how's it going today?
Good, man. We're going to dive into a team, I think they're a team it could possibly take the leap this year. I know they've had some roster turnover. I like their coach. He's only been there a year or two, but I'm liking where it's going.
Oh, yeah. Big fan of was what he did as soon as he got in, Matt Rule. As soon as he got in, He had a good draft his first year, and I got to say, I'm a big fan of this year's draft as well. But without further ado, he's been patiently waiting. Noah Alvarez, welcome to the show, man. How's everything going for you today, man?
It's going great. Thank you guys again for having me. Excited to talk Panthers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. The Panthers. It's a super young team, ain't it? It's really young.
What was it? 1995?
96.
Yeah. 1996 was the first year. You're our second Panthers fan, but I know one of the things I just want to start off with, because it didn't really fit into any of the categories we're going to ask. Who do you want to be the first Panther in the Hall of Fame? Or who do you think it should be? Who do you want it to be?
Oh, it definitely has to be Steve Smith, man. That's someone who that's why I became a Panthers fan. I'm sure that's a question later on in this podcast, and I can dive into that later. But just the way he played, man, the tenacity, they really make receivers like him anymore,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, exactly, man. That guy, he may be small in stature, but has the biggest heart, biggest ego, and he has that go-getting attitude, man. He was super blue collar, but at the same time flashy. He knew how to combine those two, man. That's something I always loved and respect about Steve.
He's the man. He's the man. We also got Peppers, though. Do you think he'll go in as a Panther, a Green Bay Packer? What do you think about that?
Hope he goes in as a Panther, but just because he won that Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers, I have a feeling that they might lean towards that, because Green Bay has a history. I think they might take him in as a Packer.
I think with him, it's just you got to mention both teams, even the Bears. But yeah, you got to mention those first two teams for sure.
Of course.
All right. Before we get into it, let everybody know where they can find you, and let us know any type of work that you're working on right now that you want to plug or shout out, man. Now's a chance, man. Have at it.
All right, on. You can find me personally on Twitter @_ Noah Alvarez. I have a few podcasts myself, my Mike and I, with Noah Alvarez. It's an interview style podcast. I like to interview people of my community. I've interviewed like teachers, coaches, local politicians, musicians, that kind of stuff. So it's more of like a laid back, just interview style. And then I also have another podcast with a good friend of mine. It's called the Front Row Seat Podcast. That's just us two. We sometimes bring on guests, but honestly, it's just a bunch of high thoughts, a bunch of high ideas, and good laughs, a lot of comedy, a lot of storytelling. So yeah, check those two podcasts out. Instagram, I have my Mike and I podcast. It's @my_Mike and _I on Instagram.
Nice. And you can find all the links below. We'll put all your information in the description.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, man. We brought you on for a reason, man. And first things first, man, I know you kind of let us in a little bit, but how did it all start about you being a fan of what do you guys call yourselves? Like like you guys have those Raider Nation and Niner Country. Do you guys call yourself something, the fanhood?
There's no like official name. I've seen Panther Nation a lot on Twitter, but it's not as big as like Raider Nation or other nations that there are across the football fan base. But yeah, I guess Panther Nation will work. So it's kind of a random chance. I'm here in Southern California, not too far from LA area, and for a lot of my life, like many of my friends, LA never had a team, unofficially, it was kind of like Raiders area. There's a lot of Cowboy fans in the area too. I would say like Chargers, maybe the third team around here. And but I was just never a fan of those teams. I had a lot of family members that were Raiders, Cowboys, Charger fans, and I didn't want to be like them because they're bad examples of fans. So honestly, I think a lot of my teams that I like are just happen to be the first games I happen to watch. And for some damn reason, I want to say it was either 2001 or 2002. Yeah, I think it was 2001 because that was the year they went 1-15. They just happened to be playing the Chargers, and that's the local team. It was on the local CBS Channel 2 that Sunday morning. And I really liked the colors. And then I think that was Steve Smith's rookie year. And so he just obviously stood out to me. The rest of the team was pretty bad. I want to say they lost that game, but I like the colors. I liked Steve Smith. That was like the first player I could kind of buy into. And eventually I just kept watching them, following them. Obviously it's hard being on the West Coast and their East Coast team. But, you know, I was really big into, my parents would always get the newspaper. So like every Monday morning I was reading the box score, who did what, you know, Jake Delhomme, what did, you know, Stephen Foster or Deshaun Foster or Stephen Davis do? What did these players do on their Sunday game? And that's kind of how the fanhood started, honestly. And, you know, a few years later, they're in the Super Bowl against New England Patriots. You know, I was heartbreaking, but it was just cool to see like a team that like was so new to me. I don't even remember. I don't even think I watched the whole Super Bowl because I was a kid at the time. I was probably like 9 years old. And I remember during the first half, I went to go play like outside. We were playing a touch football on the street. And then the second half, we watched that. But as I got older, you know, I think fandom became more of a serious thing amongst my friend group. And like, it's cool, honestly, living in Southern California because I know Viking fans, I know Packer fans, Steeler fans, Raider fans, Cowboys. Like, you know, fans from every team base because there wasn't ever a team here. And so it was just cool to like be super passionate about the Panthers. They were up, they were down, but I stuck through it through thick and thin. And so it's been a roller coaster of a ride, man. But I'm sure you can say that for any team.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like, it just sounds to me that, I mean, you said it in the beginning, but Steve Smith, he caught your eye on a 1-15 team. Yeah. That's, you know, rare because, you know, you want to usually see a lot of people maybe bandwagon or like, you know, become a product of their environment. But you saw a player and you got latched to that player and, you know, became part of it. And even when he did leave, you were still a fan to this day of the Panthers. So, man, I respect you, man. That's awesome, man. It's pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Living in LA or in the LA area, did you have any other Panthers fans that were friends or that you could sit down and watch the game with?
There was one friend in high school, not even a friend. I played football with him, and he claimed to be a Panther fan, but only because of Cam Newton at the time. So he was a very fair weather fan. And then I did happen to meet, when I went to community college around here in the area, I did happen to meet another Panther fan who was like, I think even more passionate than I was. Wow. And I never got his name. I never got his like social media or anything because I remember too, he was trying to like crash the class. He wasn't in the class. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the first 2 days we didn't speak. I think the second week he came like for the first day of that class. And I remember like I wore a Panther shirt or something. He's like, bro, you're a Panther fan? I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I am too. And we had like a great chat after class, but then he never showed up again because I don't think he got the class. So that was the end of that. And so, yeah, I've never really met another Panther fan in person. There's a few I've met through like Twitter and other social medias, but none that I've like been able to go like watch a game with at a bar or anything. So, you know, most of the times by myself or just other like non-Panther friends.
Yep, I feel you. How did you watch the Panthers before like NFL Ticket? I know they weren't on TV as much, especially back then when they were going 1-15 and stuff. Did you have any illegal streaming, radio, anything like that?
No, I wish, man. Like I said, it was hard in Southern California. It was honestly a lot of box scores. I was a big reader, so I would I read up on like, you know, maybe if there was like a magazine article on them in Sports Illustrated. My parents didn't get internet, honestly, till I went into high school, which was like 2008, 2009. So, I mean, I couldn't even do the streaming thing up until then. So I was hoping for those like that one night a year they would get a Monday night football game. And then, you know, the one night a year they got a Thursday night football game. So it was pretty tough, honestly. It was just a lot of highlights. You know, I did really like watching, you know, the ESPN and, you know, the Panthers, unless they made like a really crazy play or they were playing a very good team, they weren't ever first to be on those highlights. Yep. So you had to sit through a lot of like other stuff, but it was kind of difficult probably up until like my teen years until I was able to like, you know, get my own internet and like have my phone and just be able to discover different streaming services and stuff.
Yep. Got anything, G?
Oh yeah. So when you watch it nowadays, like, is there a ritual that you do have? Like, either you have to wear a certain attire or like you have to be somewhere. Do you watch it by yourself? Do you live tweet, bars, what have you?
I like to live tweet. I do like to go to bars with Sunday Ticket. I think I had Sunday Ticket, or like a friend and I split the cost of Sunday Ticket only one NFL season a few years back. But for the most part, I don't mind on Sundays going to like a bar that has Sunday Ticket, because it's really cool to be around that environment, right? And then every now and then you might see like another Blue Panthers jersey or something. You're just like, oh hey, like you make eye contact. And you're like, you know what's up, keep pounding. Yeah. And I think it's kind of just cool to be in that environment, because you can be watching the Panther game, whoever they're playing, but then also like there's plenty of other games. You hear the excitement build up from other teams or other games that are going on in at that bar, that sports bar. So it's pretty cool. There's a few sports bars in the area that have like a breakfast deal too. If you show up like early enough, it's like at a discounted price. So I try and find the best deals around town and go about that, especially when it's a 10 a.m. game.
Not only is he a fan, but he's also frugal, man. That's awesome, man. I like that.
Do you remember who your first jersey was?
Oh yeah. It was crazy. I don't know how my parents did it. They bought me, I forgot what year, probably 2004, 2005, because I want to say like 2 years later he wasn't even on the team. Mm-hmm. It was Stephen Davis. He was my first jersey. Yeah, number 48.
Yeah, but it was weird number.
Yeah, weird number, like old school power back, like didn't really last that long in the league. And it was crazy. Like they actually found his jersey at like a Champs Sporting Goods. I don't know if you guys have that where you're at. But but it was a 2X. Like that was the only size they had in it. And here I am, probably like 8, 9 years old at this time. And they're like, here's this 2X jersey. Like we know it doesn't fit you, but maybe you'll grow into it. And I never grew into it because I'm only like 5'10", like 200 pounds. So still really baggy on me.
Do you still got it?
I do still have it, but it's somewhere like deep in the closet, or I never bring it out because it's just like, maybe I'll hang it up one day, but it's more of like a souvenir versus like something I'd wear,
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome though, man.
I didn't remember him as a Panther. I'm a Cowboys fan. Sorry. Definitely remember him for Washington. But actually, Carolina, he had the most rushing yards of his career that first year in Carolina, 1,444 yards. So, yeah, he was still going. But I think he got hurt the next year, only 2 more games, and then that was it.
Yeah, and I believe Deshaun Foster came in around that time too. So it was like, hey, let's just go with the younger back.
Exactly. Exactly. Have you been lucky enough to see them in person yet? Go to a live game?
I have. I see G rocking the San Francisco 49er jersey. I've been able to catch them once in Santa Clara at their new 49er stadium. And then once in Oakland at the old Alameda Coliseum, or I think at the time, I forgot what it was called at the time. Oracle. They changed names. Yeah, now it's Oracle Coliseum. Oracle. I don't know. They changed it so many different times, but I've caught them in Oakland.
They're not even there anymore. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly. And then I caught him once when they played in the old Coliseum here in LA versus the Rams. I want to say it was the Rams' first year here, because it was the year right after the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, lost, and it was the year the Rams were really bad. Case Keenum was a starting quarterback, and then Jared Goff actually got put in that game because Case Keenum was doing so bad.
Who do you consider their number one rival?
Oh, definitely. Well, it definitely fluctuates, but I feel like I would say personally, it's probably the Saints, because they've always been really good, and they usually have the best games versus the Saints. And no matter like how good either team is, they always play each other tough. But when I'm on Panthers Twitter, and I definitely like made a lot of friends on Panthers Twitter, they tend to lean more towards the Falcons. They really hate the Falcons.
Oh, okay.
So I guess people more on that side of the country, they really hate people from Atlanta and Georgia and whatever. But and don't get me wrong too. I know that in recent years, especially with Cam Newton on the team, the Falcons did play a little dirty. They got some late hits in on Cam that rubbed, I'm sure, a lot of fans the wrong way. So I feel like the Falcons is the bigger rivalry now, but all the time I want to say it's the Saints.
Yeah. What about Tampa Bay? Are they sneaking in there? I mean, just because of recency stuff.
Maybe. I feel like Tampa Bay was always kind of like, we were either both bad at the same time, or Tampa Bay was bad.
Yeah,
and
you just didn't have to worry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because even going back to like when Steve Smith was still there, and he had the whole like Aqib Talib drama back and forth with him. Like that was fun, but Tampa Bay was never really it until obviously like this past year. So they're kind. I always even say the Seattle Seahawks. There was a good like 3-4 year stretch where because Russell Wilson and Cam, I think, want to say came like a year out apart into the NFL, but they would have some really good battles because they're both defensive minded teams. Good athletic quarterbacks. They would have some battles, and I think for the first like 3 years, the Seahawks always got us, but then the last like 2 or 3 of that Legion of Boom era, the Panthers were able to come out on top, and they beat them in the playoffs too that year. They went to the Super Bowl, so that was fun to watch the Seahawks little rivalry that they had.
Nice. G, got anything else for here?
No, nothing else. Nothing else for how it started.
You got it. Well, I think we already got into it a little bit, but next we want to know who your favorite player is. Are we going to take a guess, G, or do we know?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. We had a little conversation off the air. I said Luke Kuechly. He said Steve Smith.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's all good.
We could be wrong. Who's your favorite player?
Of all time on the Panthers?
All time, yep.
Yeah, it has to be Steve Smith. I mean, I love Kuechly. I love Cam. I love like D'Angelo Williams and guys like that too. But, Steve Smith, I think he really inspired me to play football too. And I was never, I played linebacker. So we never played the same position, but I was always like undersized for my position.
Yeah.
So I drew a lot of inspiration from him because even though I wasn't the biggest, I played with a lot of heart. I'm always trying to know more than my opponent did and know more than my teammates, work harder. Sometimes I like to talk trash and I would back it up. So it was cool. I really like Steve Smith's way of playing. He just, I don't know.
He played like a linebacker.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
That mentality. But of course, Steve Smith, his stats and records speak for himself. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, comeback player of the year. He's all time in Carolina Panthers history in reception yards and touchdowns. So we all know Steve Smith. Do you remember the first time, like the first big play you remember seeing him make? I know mine was he made that impact on special teams. I think that's where he got his shine the most.
Yeah, that first year, I forget what round he was drafted in, but that first year he was only a special teamer. He wasn't like a primary receiver. He did get some receiver reps, I think, towards the end of that season because they were so bad. But I believe he had like 2 or 3 punt return touchdowns for that season, his rookie year. And that's really what kind of started off. I want to say he had one against the Rams that season back when they're in St. Louis. And yeah, he was electric. Yeah, he was a good playmaker, hard to tackle. Like even despite his small stature, he was physical when he ran with the ball.
Yeah. He was a 3rd rounder. I just saw it on here. If Steve Smith was Batman, who would you say his Robin was? It could be a quarterback. It could be another offensive player. Who was the 1-2 punch?
Oof. I wish you got more years with Cam so I could say Cam, but I think take your pick. I would say lean towards D'Angelo Williams. For a solid like 5-year run, D'Angelo Williams was just so electric as a running back, and then injuries kind of caught up to him. And towards the end of his run, they were leaning more towards Jonathan Stewart. Yep. But him and Steve Smith, man, they were fun to watch. And I think Jake Delhomme, there was a kind of like in a weird era too, because they played a little bit with Jake Delhomme. He kind of started falling off. They were looking for a quarterback. There was a few bad years, and then Cam Newton kind of came in, but already at the end of both of those guys' careers. So they didn't always get to spend it with a great quarterback or a great team. But those guys were fun to watch. D'Angelo Williams is a good person. I like following him on Twitter. He's usually pretty active in the community. He's done different charitable stuff. And then, Steve Smith's my guy,
Yep. I had Jonathan Stewart and Williams as the 1-2 punch when they were both there, just going in and out. I think they both had 1,000 yards in the season. Yep. I think that was a great duo. But you mentioned Delhomme. He threw him 41 touchdowns, and Cam Newton threw him 15. So Cam just didn't have as much time with him as Delhomme did. But yeah, those were the days. That was a great offense.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I remember about Steve Smith, it was after his time. I think he was a reporter, but he goes up to when DJ Moore got drafted. He said, "This is you're looking for a replacement for me. Since I left, they found my replacement." Yeah, and for him to crown a rookie like that, that's saying a lot, especially coming from Steve Smith. It was like, no one's going to take my spot. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a big accomplishment to give away. And it shows his cocky side, but also his like generosity side,
Yeah. I think that's huge from a young player too. I know a lot of, the younger players in the NFL or in any sport, they looked up to the same players that we watched growing up. So to hear that from a Steve Smith, DJ Moore, kind of similar height, body style, a little bit similar play style too. So I'm sure that just gave him the confidence boost. And, I think that right there just shows like Steve Smith still has a lot of love for the Panthers, even though it didn't end the best of ways. But he's just trying to build up that young player so that he could be a great player for that franchise.
Yeah, even on I think it was All or Nothing. He goes with the cam. He goes, I got DJ Moore. Should I leave him on my bench or should I start him?
Fantasy.
Yep, that was funny.
Yeah, I was like, hell yeah, dude, that's hilarious. And DJ Moore right there, just like kind of smiling, cracking up.
Yeah.
I was watching some Steve Smith highlights before we did this interview, and I want to know your favorite play that he did. But the one that I remember is the catch versus the Saints, where he takes the late hit. He takes the late hit from Roman Harper, and he acts like he's not going to do anything. Then he just walks right up to Jenkins, and he just starts fighting the teammate, which it just shows he knew. He's like, you know what? I scored. I could take a penalty right now, and I'm about to whoop some ass. But
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I think my favorite play, it actually just circulated back on my Twitter timeline. There was a play against the Giants. I want to say it was a playoff game. It might have been just in a regular season game, but he went over the middle for like a post, caught the ball. The safety laid a big hit on him, but he actually broke his forearm in that play, but he still hung on to the catch. And I think that just like spoke volumes on his toughness. And then he played, I think, the rest of that season with the broken forearm. So, he was just one of those players, like no matter like how injured he was. I mean, obviously, unless it was something severe, he was going to play. And there's another play too against the Saints. I forgot exactly how many players it took to tackle him, but like he was dragging like maybe like 6 or 7 guys. There's a cool picture of him just like as he's going down, you see how many Saints players like they're like trying so hard to bring him down. And I just thought like, man, that's just Steve Smith, who he was with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I'm watching that. I'm watching that Giants play right now where he broke his arm. He scores the touchdown and he celebrates and then realizes his arm's broken.
He's like, oh shit,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's one thing I loved about that guy. I mean, you see even big guys today that are bigger than and probably more physical than Steve Smith are scared to go across the middle. They crocodile arm, you know what I mean? For probably linebackers like yourself, Noah, and he was fearless across the middle. That's one thing I loved about him. I played receiver, so that's a guy that was similar size to myself. So I'm like, oh my God, like look how this guy's playing. I want to play like this guy. So seeing him fearless across the middle, fuck it. Just go right across the middle, catch that ball, gain some yards, and drag some Saints players on the way.
Yeah. Yep. How'd you feel when he ended up leaving and going to Baltimore?
That one hurt. You were talking about earlier about, a test to your fanhood. And it was definitely, probably the other than this past, like maybe 2 years, it was probably like one of the most conflicted times I've been as a Panthers fan. Cause like I said, I fell in love with Steve Smith first and then the Carolina Panthers franchise second. I thought about hopping over to the Ravens fan base, but it just didn't make sense to me after being so invested for so long with the Panthers. But I was truly heartbroken too, because then you find out later too that things didn't really end the best of ways with, the front office at the time. I believe it was Dave Gettleman, who was a GM, and just other front office people didn't really give Steve Smith the benefit of the doubt. And obviously it's tough, it's tough to pay an older player like the money that he was going to ask for. So I get why they had to move on from him like that, but it still hurts nonetheless. He still had a good little career or a couple seasons with the Baltimore Ravens once he left. And, when they played, I didn't want to say the next year they played Ravens Panthers, and he balled out. He had, a few touchdowns. I don't know how many catches or yards, but I mean, he had a great game. And in that game, I was rooting for the Ravens and Steve Smith. So definitely my fandom was questioned at that time, but I was still able to stick it through with Carolina.
There you go.
Anything else for Steve Smith, G?
No, nothing else. So I think we can all agree on this next topic. I mean, it's your favorite coach. And I guess my question is, how can it not be Ron Rivera if it is or is not?
It's definitely Ron Rivera. I think I was too young to really appreciate John Fox and the things that he did for the franchise. Matt Rule's cool. I think he could very, soon become my favorite coach because, I really like what he did with Baylor because Baylor was a tricky situation that he was taking over that program. So I feel like he handled the best.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, he handled it the best of ways and he's doing good things now. But especially as a Latino, there's not a lot of Latinos in pro sports, especially in football. And I believe Tom Flores was the only other Hispanic or Latino coach. So it was cool to see Ron Rivera do it, get the team to the Super Bowl, even though he didn't win and he never really got to like the ultimate finish line. He did bring that team a lot of success. He got them through a really rough time. I liked how he kind of changed his identity after a few years, because I want to say during his first 2 seasons, losing record, good defensive team, but offensively, even though they had Cam Newton and these good weapons, they just never really able to close out games. And he had the knock of like being too conservative, and eventually started rolling the dice more. And I want to say that really took off in 2014, maybe 2013, but he became Riverboat Ron. And like, that was a cool little fun nickname. From what I heard, he was really like good with the community, always doing charitable stuff and just a really good person. So it kind of hurt to see him go too, but I understood why he had to go. And I think forever he'll be like one of my favorite NFL coaches of all time, just because, like I said, as a Latino playing football, you don't see it a lot in the NFL, but that was always really cool to see Ron do his thing.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Do you think he should have at least been able to finish out the year? I mean, when I think of Ron Rivera, I think of like, he's a great coach, but he just sets a high standard, great leader, motivator, and I just think he deserved to have the rest of that year.
I thought so too, but I know the Panthers, I could see the reasoning why too. I've listened to a lot of different things during that time about it. And, I think I want to say it was like 2 or 3 more games that they had. It gives them a chance to be a little bit more experimental. I think that he lost the locker room. There was a lot of different factors that went into it. I would have loved to seen him go out, finish the season, just like you said yourself. Yep. But, it's just tough. Like, when front office doesn't agree with the same thing. And I get it. You have to do experiment and see what else you got up and down your franchise going into next year and see who you're going to keep around, not only player personnel wise, but coaching staff too.
Yeah. About Ron Rivera though, real quick, is again, I'm going to reference All or Nothing, but I think it was Devin Funchess when he was on your guys' squad. I think his brother got like killed and he goes and pulls somebody aside, and the head coach pulls somebody aside, have that one-on-one, have that like heart-to-heart conversation, and like just says like, hey, like you can reach out to my wife, like she's really good to talk to. And it's like, wow, like to have that, to offer that to a player that was, I remember he was borderline, is he going to make the team or not? So
right.
That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, totally agree. I love Ron Rivera. Actually, I wanted him to be Dallas's coach because he was up for a job same time as Big Mike, but I think he's in a better situation. He wants to control his team, and I don't think he would have been able to do that in Dallas. But
true.
Yeah, good luck to him there. About Matt Rule, though, I think if he wins a Super Bowl, I think he will definitely be the fan favorite. I think he'll take over here. I didn't really start noticing him until I started watching his interviews in the NFL. Like, I didn't watch much Baylor or Temp. I remember those organizations kind of turning over and doing great underneath him. But, man, I love his interviews. I loved him at the Senior Bowl, listening to his interviews there. It's like he just seems way more open and honest with the reporters. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do feel that same way about the interviews. I just think he's like one of the great like younger football minds that we're kind of seeing influx in the NFL. I think I forgot who was up for a job at that year that Ron Rivera, but like everyone was expecting other names to come into play. I believe Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, was a big fan favorite, at least on Twitter, because of the success that he had with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. I want to say maybe the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, who's now the Jets head coach. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Saleh,
that's right. So there was a few guys that were in the mix. And then this Matt Rule guy kind of got some, like, I think the media, like maybe like days before the hire was official, they're like, hey, like everyone loves this Matt Rule guy, Matt Rule. And I'm like, Baylor, like, like he didn't win any Big 12 championships. Like, and he even take him to like a big bowl game. Like, why are we getting this guy? And then obviously, you know, as you see the first season progress, and like you said, the interviews and just like some of the different ways that players talk about him. And obviously he wasn't gifted the greatest team right away. Cam got injured right away too during his first few seasons. So, you know, it was a lot of uphill challenges and battles that he had to face right away. But I think just his mind overall is very football oriented. And it's like a new, like I said, the new minds of football among the like Kyle Shanahan's, Sean McVays, those kind of guys. And I just think it's really cool to have these young dudes taking over in the NFL in this way that they are. And Matt Rule is one of them, you know?
Yeah. And I also said at the beginning, I think this is a team that could take the leap. It's because Matt Rule, and this is going to be his first off season where, you know, he's not doing it over Zoom. He's actually installing the offense, the defense, and doing everything in person. So, yeah, I think he's the right coach for you guys, and I think he'll have success moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you see Matt Rule, when he went to Temple, he was known – you know, I think he was an offensive line coach for the Giants. He's like, okay, he's gonna get a head coach right away. We'll see how he does. And he turned that, you know, program, and he turned him into the right direction. And he did the same thing in Baylor. Like you said earlier, that's a shitty situation with Art Briles and so on and so forth. We can go on for days about that. But he fixed that program per se, right? And, you know, he goes into this one, and I think he's turning it around, and I'm excited to see Matt Rule, you know, the fixer, you know, pretty much fix the Carolina Panthers and what they're doing now. It seems like he has a lot to say in roster control and everything too as a head coach, and that's a lot, especially from someone coming from the college ranks to the NFL. So that's something I respect. That shows, you know, that shows the camaraderie between the back office and that head coach. You know what I mean? The trust is there for sure.
The front office, not the back office. That's the janitor. All right. You ready to move on, G?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
So we want to know about your favorite memory
of all time. Favorite Panthers memory of all time.
Ooh. Favorite Panther memory of all time. I think it was probably the first time, and I want to say it was either 2014 or 2015 season. The first time they beat the Seahawks in the playoffs. That was really cool. I believe it was a blown coverage because I remember the touchdown exactly, and I couldn't remember the final score or anything, but Cam Newton hits Greg Olsen in the back of the end zone. It was the Legion of Boom era. I believe Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, those guys are still there in Seattle. And like I said, we had battling them in the regular season, in the playoffs. What felt like for like 3-4 years in a row. And I think there was a few times where we got them in the regular season, but almost always in the playoffs they were getting us, or the 49ers would get us before we would even get to the Seahawks. And that final year, they were able to get over that hump. And I just felt like it was such a big accomplishment too, because I believe they did it in Seattle. If you guys could fact check that for me. But I want to say that was
at Bank of America Stadium.
Okay, so it was actually in Carolina. So then the crowd was like super hyped. It was just really cool. It was a really cool moment to see that, because like I said, this was a team that was always kind of like the standard of the NFC, and you thought they were going to run it for this long. And eventually the Panthers, you know, when they were young, I remember too, their secondary was really good. And instead of, because, you know, the Seahawks had the Legion of Boom nickname, no one really knew these players for this Panthers secondary. And they called them on Twitter, at least, the Legion of Whom, because it was like Josh Norman. I want to say Mike Mitchell was a safety that year. I'm trying to blank on, I think Melvin White was still a corner for us. So just like these like random dudes that like had like their best seasons with us like ever. And it was really cool to see them actually finally get over the hump. Like I said, Greg Olsen, I want to say that touchdown was within like less than 3 minutes left to go. And that just kind of put the icing on the cake. And that was probably my favorite moment ever.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. You guys actually got off to a good start. It was 31-0 at halftime, but then you guys ended up winning 31-24. But yeah,
I remember Kuechly's pick six, right? Kuechly had a pick six that game. I'm remembering right.
He did.
Yep, sure did. I was looking at Cam's stats, and I was like, how did they get 31 points with Cam only throwing one touchdown and rushing for 3 yards? But yeah, defense did their thing that time. The other
lost one game that year, I think, or that season.
Yeah, that was the 2015 season. I looked it up. I mean, Cam's MVP year, 45 total touchdowns. I mean, I think just as a fan of football, that was one of the most exciting years, in recent memory. I want to know, who was your favorite? Who were you the most hyped for out of your first round picks? I mean, you got Cam in 2011, Kuechly in 2012, and then McCaffrey in 2017. They were all highly drafted. Do you remember being the most excited for one of those guys?
Definitely Christian McCaffrey, because definitely Cam Newton, I was actually down on. I just, I did see him at Auburn for that 1 year, but because he had that weird situation, he played junior college and then only got only one season at the university level as a starter. I didn't know if it was going to work, and then he was primarily a running quarterback. And how many times have we seen running quarterbacks not really work out in the NFL? So there's like an infamous Facebook post that, how like Facebook does like memories, and I'm not on there a whole bunch, but every now and then when I'm on there, I'll see it. Like on this day I posted so long ago, it's like, oh great, the Panthers drafted like Cam Newton, like he's gonna be another bust, like another 5 years of suckiness. I thought in my head, and like shit, like he proved me wrong. So that was really cool. Luke Kuechly was kind of, I don't want to say out of nowhere. I'm sure people who were really into the draft at that time knew he was legit. I want to say if that was 2012, I was only a senior in high school, and I didn't really watch the draft or pay much attention to the way I do now. So I didn't really hear about this kid from Boston College, but right away he definitely like made a great impersonation, especially playing the linebacker position too. So that was cool to watch him once he was on the team. But definitely out of players like who just got drafted and who I was hyped for, Christian McCaffrey was exciting. He did everything at Stanford, returning, receiving, rushing the ball, and I wish he got more time with Cam Newton, but I just felt like instantly like that backfield, like I was super hyped for it.
Yeah, he was a cheat code at Stanford. I mean,
he should have won
every week. Yeah, seriously.
That I think one of the like couple of the voters were like, "Hey, he plays on the West Coast. I can't watch him." So I'm like, wow, dude, for real.
What was that? Who won that year? I forgot who it was.
I'm pretty sure it was like I want to say it was another running back, wasn't it? Like Mark Ingram, I think.
Oh, one of those running backs.
Maybe
could have been.
I'll check that right now.
It's 2016. I think we're gonna move on a little bit. Not every year you get to draft Cam or Christian McCaffrey, but do you have a worst memory being a Panthers fan? I mean, you do have the Super Bowl loss, two of them. You have a couple player injuries that I'm gonna touch. Can you think of anything?
Can it be something non in the season?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think just the way it ended with Cam Newton. I think even though Steve Smith's my favorite player, I think Cam Newton did more for that franchise as far as putting them on the map and bringing a lot more people to that fan base. Even if some of them are fair weather or bandwagoners, I still think a lot of them have stuck with the fan base even after he departed. And just the way it ended, I didn't really like that. It was new ownership, yes. It was a new head coach, yes. But I remember they said it during that Super Bowl week when they interviewed Matt Rule and David Tepper. They're like, yes, their plan is to go forward with Cam Newton. And I think it was at the Combine they interviewed Matt Rule, and he was like, yeah, like I'm excited to get to work with Cam Newton. And so like all this hype leading into like us believing as fans, like, oh yeah, like, cool, like this new coach is going to work with Cam Newton. Great, cool, we get to keep him. Even though he had been battling some injuries years prior, like, okay, we can still root for this guy. We can still look forward to the future. And then all of a sudden, like the rumors started like coming out, like, oh, like we're actually like thinking about trading Cam Newton. And then like before they could even make a trade, they had signed Teddy Bridgewater, and everyone's like, what the fuck? Like what's going on here? And what I really didn't like, which really disappointed me the most, and like this was the time where I was like 99% sure I was going to leave the Panthers fan base during this. They like released a press release, and I'm pretty sure they took it down shortly after, but they left the press release on their like website saying that we're allowing Cam Newton to seek a trade. Yeah. Like as if he was asking. Yeah. Right. And then like Cam Newton, because he's big on his social media, he has his own platforms, he has his own channel on YouTube. But then he like, he posted it and on his own posts on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere. It's like, hey, like, don't get this twisted. Like, I didn't ask to be traded. They're kind of just, kicking me to the door. Like, this is them. This is not me. And, you know, that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I've listened to a lot of different interviews about the exit and how it was. And just, like I said, after Steve Smith was ugly, after D'Angelo Williams was ugly, after all these different players didn't really end the best of ways, then to hear that Cam Newton didn't get ended the best of ways too with his career, that was very shameful. I was very, that next season, I was like very upset with the Panthers. I didn't want to root for them. Like I said, I was like teetering on like jumping to a different fan base like every week. And I decided to stick it out. I still root for Cam on the side, you know, now that he's with New England. But
do you draft him in fantasy?
Would I draft him in fantasy? No, because I need a good quarterback, like a more stat stuffing quarterback.
They're gonna run a lot. But I also remember Josh Norman's contract being a weird one too. It was like he wanted to get paid, and he at the time he was top 2, 3 at least. You know, he was up there as like the top cornerback, and the contract dispute just made him end up leaving. Yeah, and
what I didn't like too, they had the franchise tag on him, and originally he said, "I don't want to sign the franchise tag."
Yeah,
but then he was willing to sign the franchise tag. I want to say like maybe like a week or two before the deadline, because
of course
he was really it was guaranteed money. And I think he even said like on a social media post he was excited. He really liked the Carolina Panthers and that coaching staff. And then but front office, Dave Gettleman, a lot of Panther fans hate Dave Gettleman, and for good reason. But Dave Gettleman was like, "Nah, screw you. We're gonna rescind the franchise tag from you and just let you walk."
Yeah,
and it was kind of like, whoa, like you're just gonna let him walk? Like we're not even getting a trade for him. We're not gonna like nothing. We're just gonna let him walk. And it was crazy because Josh Norman too. A lot of people don't remember, like he was really bad his first year in the NFL. His second year, like very like below average corner, and like most people didn't think he was gonna start. But I want to say at the end of his third season, you know, started balling out, and then fourth season, like that's when he became Josh Norman. And it was kind of like crazy to see his growth. But he wasn't like I want to say he was a 3rd or 4th round pick. Coastal Carolina, like not a lot of dudes come from there. So it was really crazy to see his growth. And then for that to end like that, I have a jersey of him too. I remember I got it that off season because I was super hyped for Josh Norman. And, you know, he ended up only being on the team 1 year after that.
Yeah.
To answer the question earlier, though, it was Derrick Henry who won the Heisman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it should have been McCaffrey. It was between Derrick Henry came in first, McCaffrey, Deshaun Watson, and then Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Henry was balling that year though too.
Yeah,
he was with Bama. Josh Norman was a 5th round pick, which is crazy, and still doing his thing, which I love. One thing that I had to bring up for worst memory, which I think kind of got blown out of proportion a little bit, which a lot of things do, but the Super Bowl versus the Broncos, you know, Peyton Manning riding off into the sunset, Von Miller dominating, and then Cam Newton taking all the heat for not jumping on that fumble. Do you think that was a little bit blown out of proportion? You know what I mean?
A little bit. Yeah. At the time, I think he had, it was weird. You know, I know a lot of like, not a lot, but there's a handful of Panther fans that I've met over social media that believe like, you know how people that the NFL is fixed and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos were the better team, especially their pass rush was just so superior, and our O-line was very like below average pass blocking.
Yeah.
So as soon as we had to start passing and dropping back all the time, it was game over from then. And I don't know. I remember seeing that Cam Newton play live, and I was thinking like, what the fuck? Like why didn't he do that? But because so many people were anti-Cam, anti the celebrations, anti the dab. You know, he's an African American quarterback. You know, we already know the history of like most NFL fans towards those kind of players. Like the hate that he got was like super out of proportion, I think.
Yeah.
But in the moment, you know, I was just as frustrated, I think, as most people were. But it just wasn't his day. It wasn't the O-line's day. Which sucks too, because Peyton Manning didn't have a great game either. Like our defense balled out. We just couldn't score more than like I think 10 points, and that was that. You know, so very unfortunate. But
there's a reason why Von Miller won MVP, man. I mean, that defense, they out of their mind, man. They played out of
that whole year. Von Miller was killing it that year. But like you said, I think the game came down to way more than just that one single play that people kind of put on,
there's
like
a reason why that play ended up happening, because like you said earlier, your line wasn't the best at pass blocking. So
well, last question for bad memories, and then we can move on unless G's got anything else. But
anything else, man.
You've had a lot of your studs get hurt, from Christian McCaffrey last year. We know Kuechly with his concussions, Thomas Davis. I mean, he's battled back from so many things. Cam Newton, the shoulder injury. Steve Smith was out for almost a whole year with a broken leg. Do you remember one of those kind of hurting more than any of the others?
I think definitely Cam Newton's hurt the most. I mean, Christian McCaffrey this past year.
Yeah.
I knew the Panthers weren't going to be good, as shitty as that is to say as a fan, like going into the season, you got to be realistic. So I didn't worry too much, but I felt like the Panthers were, I want to say 2 or 3 years removed from the Super Bowl, because I want to say he started getting injured in either 2017 or 2018. I want to say it was 2017 because that's when they did the All In, right, for Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
All or nothing.
I thought it was, I think it was cool because they didn't release that till like the next May.
Yeah.
And it was, they went back and like you did the film, and I want to say he injured it in that Steelers game where like they got blown out, really like embarrassed, and I think he threw an interception and tried to make a tackle, and like that's where he messed up his shoulder. Yeah. And you just saw like as the season progressed, like you knew something was up, because like he went from like throwing, like he wasn't a great deep ball thrower, but he could throw it deep, like 40, 50 yards, no problem. But by the end of the season, he was like struggling to get like 15, 20, like. And you're just like, whoa, like what's going on here? And so that was obviously unfortunate. And like the next year, there was just another injury, one after another. He couldn't escape the injury bug. So, and I think that's really what led to the decision for them to move on from them. Obviously, new owner, new head coach. But if he was healthy those 2 seasons and just even played like above average, I think they would have decided to keep him, because he was still like young enough to where you're like, oh yeah, we could like have this guy for 5 more years
and cheap.
Matt Rule and cheap. Yeah.
So. He was really cheap at the time. I think he's always been able to throw deep. It's just his accuracy was a thing. But once you started seeing him struggling or kind of, really having to get everything behind his deep ball, that's kind of when he realized his arm was not the same, or that's when I realized it.
Right.
Yep. The injury that stands out to me out of that group, though, is Luke Kuechly, the concussions when he was, a little sad leaving the field after that. That was brutal, just because of how good of a player he is. And, I think everyone kind of saw it coming that watched football. You knew this was his multiple concussion, and, he's a smart guy. And I think we all knew his decision coming forward. Yeah. Gee, anything else for worst memory?
Nah, man, I'm ready to move on to brighter expectations, man.
You got it. Well, let's move on a little bit. We want to know your future expectations with the team. Is there anything you want to start off with, G?
Yeah, man. I want to talk about your guys' draft. That just happened. I'm a huge fan of this, because every player that you guys drafted in each round, I was actually really, really high on. I remember watching it here at Duran's house, with my brother and my brother-in-law. I was like, man, like, J.C. Horn, he's going to be the first cornerback drafted. And then I was high on Terrence Marshall. I wanted the Niners to take him. We ended up getting a guard, and you guys get him in the second round. Then you guys go Brady Christensen, Chuba Hubbard. You guys took a flyer on Davion Nixon. Then went Keith Taylor, who was a Senior Bowl standout. Dante Brown, which is a mountain of a man. Shi Smith, who was another Senior Bowl standout. Thomas Fletcher, I don't know who that was, gonna be honest with you. And then Phil Hoskins, the tackle from Kentucky. I'm a huge fan of all those draft picks, even the long snapper, because I mean, I know from experience long snappers do come into play quite often. But out of all those draft picks, is there ones that excite you the most, more than the other?
Yeah, it's hard not to pick J.C. Horn. I like the legacy too. Joe Horn's son, right? He used to play for the Saints, so it's kind of cool. Even I think after he drafted, he like posted a jersey, posted a picture of him in the Panthers jersey with his son when they got to tour Bank of America Stadium. So it was cool to see that a former Saint player do that. But Terrence Marshall Jr. probably for me because, one, I'm a big LSU fan. Two,
Okay.
Joe Brady was offensive coordinator for Terrence Marshall when they went on that national championship
Exactly.
run.
Yep.
And so I just feel like Joe Brady's really, I think Matt Rule is giving Joe Brady a lot to work with this season, which I think, that's why a lot of people have such high hopes with him. He's getting, not only similar people like Terrence Marshall Jr., but just similar players to what he had when he was at LSU. And now he has a new quarterback in Sam Darnold. So I just think Terrence Marshall Jr. is probably very exciting for me. And like you said, he was kind of like a fringe end of the first round guy for us to kind of sneak in and get him at the beginning of the second, the way we did. That was super cool. Yeah, I really like that one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the Panthers are the reason Dallas had to start trading back and getting into panic mode because every mock draft, and I'm sure every Dallas Cowboy executive and front office member thought that they were going to get one of these corners. And yeah, you guys swooped in there and got the guy. And I think he might have been one of my favorites. There's ups and downs between him and Surtain. One was a little more conservative. J.C. Horn is just a dog out there. And you made Cowboys have to do a little bit of scrambling.
Yeah, I know that J.C. Horn trains with Ramsey, and I remember when we were watching film, Duran, you pointed out, like, look at him, like his swag, his like even down to the mouthpiece is like, Ramsey. And he like Ramsey, that guy's a dog. Like he won't talk shit like Ramsey yet. I know he probably will, but man, Ramsey, like Horn's a dog, and that's something I like about that. But my favorite, honestly, was probably round 3 and round 4. I know Chuba didn't get a lot of love because, quote unquote, that he's soft. But I think, like, man, you're going to be running behind, Christian McCaffrey. So you're not going to be taking on a lot of the load. You're probably going to get the third down back. You're going to be pass catching back. And he's going to shine in open space, which he did out there in Oklahoma State. But Brady Christensen, he was actually ranked one of the top tackles. And for him to go in the 3rd round, that's a big steal. I mean, earlier we're just talking about pass protection, and then he kept Zach Wilson, pretty clean. I mean, it was the rest of the line that struggled a little bit, but he kept Zach Wilson, pretty clean. So I'm excited about him too.
Yeah, you guys are stringing together some draft classes. I like it. You guys mentioned was it Matt Rule? And that just made me, we're going to move on to free agents next. I just realized Matt Rule's coached Hassan Reddick. And that's when, if you're a fan of the draft, he shot up draft boards pretty much the last month of the draft and became, a combine spark freak. He could do it all. And I'm kind of excited to see him back with Matt Rule to see what he could do. But do you have a favorite free agent that came in on the offensive side? Pat Elflein, Cam Irving, David Moore on the defensive side, AJ Bouye, Denzel Perryman, Hassan Reddick, Daquan Jones, Morgan Fox.
AJ Bouye is a big get.
Yeah. I think AJ Bouye for me. Yeah. I know he's not the same corner that he was 3-4 years ago, but I mean, this even like he wasn't a highly touted prospect coming into the draft at the Houston Texans. I want to say first, right? He like really rose up, made a name for himself, got paid by I think the Jaguars, right? And then
Jags,
and then he just kind of aged a little bit. And I still feel like he'll provide. He's not going to be asked to be the number 1 corner because obviously there's Horn now, there's Dante Jackson, but because both those corners are young, I feel like it pays to have like a good veteran like him. He has experience playing the nickel too. So whether he plays the nickel or Dante plays the nickel, I just feel like he's going to give very good advice to those younger corners, which I think is huge because we've had a younger secondary for the past few years, and to have a good veteran in there, just so much for like the leadership standpoint. I think that's going to be huge for this Panthers team.
I agree. If my team signed Bouye, I would have been fine with it. We have some young corners that need some advice as well. Anything else for future expectations? I got pretty much 1 or 2 more.
Is there anybody on the team that you think is pretty much going to have like a standout year or a breakout year per se? Is there anybody that, maybe everybody else is sleeping on?
Yeah, I think a lot of people know about Jeremy Chin, so I don't want to bring out Jeremy Chin. I think a lot of people still obviously have some sort of belief in Sam Darnold, so I don't want to say Sam Darnold. I'll bring up Jermaine Carter, the linebacker. he was kind of a special teamer the first year, maybe even 2 years with Carolina. But then obviously with Kuechly's retirement, last year he got a lot of playing time on the defense, and the Panthers defense wasn't stellar, but excuse me, he did have a lot of bright spots, a lot of highlights from this past season as the linebacker there. So I don't think he's obviously going to be the Kuechly replacement. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does lead the team in tackles, if he is like a 100+ tackle guy next season, and he's just really like flying everywhere to the ball, especially with like all eyes on Jeremy Chin now. I think that's going to allow defense or offenses to focus really on Chin, taking him out of the game. But now that'll open things up for Jermaine Carter to make some plays.
Nice. That's a good name. Jeremy Chin, I mean, probably should have been the defensive rookie of the year last year. I mean, he was putting up tons of, he was playing great, but that's a great answer. I need to actually watch a little bit more of Carter.
Yeah, 5th round draft pick, right?
There it is.
Out of Maryland.
Wow. Maryland, that's where it was. I was going to say, remember it was like a red team. I was going to say NC State or somebody, but yeah, it was Maryland.
Got it. He's on my list, Jermaine Carter. The last question that I have is more towards the coordinator spot. Are you happy you want to stick with Joe Brady? You want to stick with Phil Snow? I mean, Joe Brady, I think, has a lot of potential. I mean, we've seen what he's done at LSU and with other offenses. And he's got Terrence Marshall now, so he's building his little squad there.
Yeah, I'm excited with both those coordinators. Obviously, it's hard to judge them after last year. Like you mentioned earlier, COVID year, they're doing a lot of things over Zoom, but also just they were not the best equipped team. And I don't think they have maybe the ideal players yet still there, but they have a group of players. And then the younger players that were there last year now have a year under their belt. They know what to expect of them. I really think the biggest game changer for at least Joe Brady, in my opinion, is going to be Sam Darnold. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's a fine quarterback, but he's a very just game manager type quarterback. He's not really going to throw deep a lot. And he plays it safe, which is fine, but Joe Brady doesn't have that safe offense. And that's really, Joe Burrow was the best example of that. Yeah. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's Joe Burrow at all by any means, but I just feel like he's more of a risk taker.
I like that.
Yeah, he's able to stretch the field a little bit more. I just think he'll have a little bit more success with Sam Darnold now running the offense than he did last year with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I like how you put that. Joe Brady doesn't necessarily have the safe offense, and yeah, I like that, man. I'm pretty excited for that one.
Yeah, that's it for me. G, anything else?
Yeah, one last thing. Can you give us one realistic expectation for the Panthers as far as record goes?
We have 17 games this year. That's right?
Yep.
I think what would that be? 9-8. 9-8 is pretty realistic.
Okay.
I've had a chance to look at their schedule, and I don't remember exactly week per week who they play, but this might be like a fringe playoff team. They might sneak in as a wild card spot, but I wouldn't like to put pressure on them to make the playoffs still. It's still too early because, like I said, it's the first year with Sam Darnold. I think there might be some growing pains early on. I just wouldn't think too highly of them, and maybe that's just like the conservative fan in me, so I don't get super disappointed if they don't make the playoffs. But I'm gonna say 9-8 is like a good they'll have a good ascension from where they were last year, but it's still maybe not be ready for the playoffs,
Yep, I feel you. Cowboys will see you week 4.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, we'll be ready to roll. That's
All
it
right,
for me, G.
Yeah, that's it for me too. If you want to go ahead and again, let us know where we can find you, and again, like the work that you're working on, man, because I'm excited about that. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you again for having me. You can follow me on Twitter personally @_ Noah Alvarez. I do have a few podcasts myself. My Mike and I podcast with Noah Alvarez. That was the interview style one. Then there's also the front row seat with myself and Jacob Fanshaw. That one's more of just like a, two friends shooting the shit on the mic. And Instagram for my Mike and I is @my_Mike_I. Again, thank you guys again for having me. I'm excited for this football season. Obviously last year was so weird because of COVID and everything, that so much was going on. So I feel like I didn't really get a great chance to pay attention, but this offseason I've been more tapped in, and I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, keep pounding, right?
Yeah, keep pounding. That's right.
I agree.
All right, man. Again, you can look at Duran's background. You can follow us on Twitter at While We're Fans Pod. And again, on YouTube, go ahead and share and subscribe. Be sure to go ahead and give my man Noah a follow as well on Twitter. I'm gonna look forward for those pods, man. That sounds awesome, man. Both of them sound really, really fun, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Thanks
for joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Again.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a great one.
Have
Yeah.
a good one.
All right,
Later.
everybody. Peace.
Yeah. Peace.